This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Ira, good morning, sir. And just thoughts on the Tua performance yesterday and my conversation of structure, which you've been around it. You have a healthy experience of what proper structure helps.
Yeah, there were 2 points when I was listening to my pregame show here with the sound on and the show up. First of all, the rush to judgments in sports sucks. And I understand with social media, everything is in the moment. I'm guilty of that also during Heat games. I will tweet something during a game, and by the end, someone in the Heat organization will point it out to me and tell me how wrong I was. Certainly, we all could have been guilty of that yesterday after the early interceptions, after their early struggles. You have to have patience. And with young players, you have to have patience, certainly sometimes through seasons, because it doesn't happen right away. And you have to sort of let that come together. That's one thing I hate about sports now. I almost wish, honestly, even you, Big O, and I know you're big into social media also, we could put the phones aside, take it all in, and then in its entirety, when it's over, give our thoughts. Because you know what? NBA games don't end till the 48th minute. NFL games don't end, as we saw yesterday, to the 60th minute. Then sit back. You don't have to be first. This whole Schefter and Woj firstism, where there's no perspective when they announce signings or trades, and you don't know why, you just know that something happened, I think is really important. The second part is you need the right fit, and it's very interesting. Now, I'm doing my Miami Heat 5-35 series, about 35 seasons with the team, and how things have changed. And I just finished writing for tomorrow. I'm going to post my Heat small forwards. And one thing I wrote about that was this. Can you imagine Jamal Mashburn if he was in Eric Spoelstra's positionalist system? In other words, if a player gets to fully expose, Jamal Mashburn was with the Heat was a small forward. You get in this box, that's who you are. Now when I'm doing my Miami Heat 5-5, 5 best positions all time, so many of these guys who played for Spoelstra, I don't know what the hell position they are. You know, what was Dwayne Wade during most of that run? What was LeBron besides the best at every position? So when you look at Tua, it's the right player at the right time. And I do agree with those who tweeted after yesterday's game, the dourness of Brian Flores. And I understand dictatorial coaches, Belichick, have thrived over the years, so there's a place for that. But it's also refreshing because you now have a guy like Mike McDaniel that enjoys it as much as you do. And you see it in him. And when you're watching the game, you're going, that guy's like me. That guy realizes this can be fun also.
Well, he's also willing to be vulnerable like us.
Yes, exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
Because Flores would not be vulnerable at all, dude. It doesn't. There was no emotion. There was no care. It was just this guy will be honest with you about what like the other day Tua was honest about, you know, it's hard for me at times to see over the line, and I had people coming out of all over the place. Well, short quarterbacks, and why would you draft a short quarterback? And it's like, dude, this has been going on for 60 years in football. Shorter quarterbacks have always had trouble seeing over the line. They use passing lanes, but this is the sad part of social media. It's like, and when you don't have the knowledge, then you go off on this tangent, and it's like, dude, relax. Tua's just being honest. Fran Tarkenton would have told you the same thing. Montana would have told you the same thing.
Drew Brees, who the Dolphins wanted.
Yeah, they all would have told you the same thing. It's just that's not something that's normally talked about. And McDaniel does the same thing. He talks about things that just some coaches will not ever approach, and he's willing to be, you know, open that way, and to me that endears us to him because he's more like us. He's more like a
number one and number two. And I wrote this in my Ask Ira at sunsentinel.com this morning. I love Tua's post-game presser, how he gives credit to everyone else. And to me, that reminds me a little bit of what Bam Adebayo is or isn't with the Miami Heat. He's not the be-all, end-all. He's a little undersized also. But the other pieces around him also have to step up and work for him. Kyle Lowry didn't necessarily last year. Victor Oladipo just coming around. Because as much as we're reveling in Tua, I'm going to be honest with you, Big O, okay? Here for a second. Take away Waddle and take away Tyreek Hill yesterday. Just work with me on this. And put in instead Preston Williams and Isaiah Ford. It's
lose.
not the same game. We're not. We would. Orlando, I think you'd agree with this 1,000%. Would we be talking about Tua today if he didn't have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill at his side in yesterday's game?
No, we wouldn't be talking about Montana without Rice and Taylor.
Exactly. It's more than one. It's a team. It's about getting the right mix and the right combination and providing, I hate war analogies, but armament to your players to be their best. That's what they do.
It helps to have Swan, Stallworth, and Franco Harris. You know, it's like, holy shit.
Just through the years, you have to have the right guys, or Gronk, you know, with Brady at multiple stops or someone like that. So now we're seeing, matter of fact, even yesterday, a guy we wrote off in preseason, Mike Gesicki, had some big catches yesterday, and he was back to being weaponized again yesterday. That's good coaching. And remember, Mike McDaniel was very honest when he arrived. There might not be a role for Mike Gesicki, but a good coach like an Eric Spoelstra, or we hope a Mike McDaniel says, but this guy is here. So I need to find a way to make him work. Like a Max Struess, like a Gabe Vincent, like your other players. You only have X amount of chess pieces. You can't trade for everything. You couldn't make a Gesicki deal and get out of the contract, so you make it work. So instead, he comes up with big plays. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun having young, dynamic coaches sort of leading the way for you. We're seeing it with the Heat. We're seeing it right now with the Dolphins. Maybe we'll get to see with the Marlins. I don't know, lack of talent-wise, if that's going to make a difference. But sometimes it is that infusion.
Yeah, no, I think we have a better chance of seeing some special international talent come to town because Moss is a maniac and he will pay and he will spend money on the baseball side. I think our only hope in the summer is really Inter. It's not the baseball team. It's Inter to carry us in the summer, to be quite honest. Inter and NBA free agency.
We'll get pulled through there. You know what? But I watched them last night. And it's actually the guy, instead of watching the Cowboys, is watching some Inter also. And they had their moments again last night. And you can see them on the
Higuaín has played well, man. He's played well. It's really bad. Since they added Pozuelo, that opened it up for Higuaín. And so now the pitch is a little bit more open for him. And since he doesn't have a lot of athleticism, whenever he does get the ball, he would have people on him because they weren't worried about anything. But Pozuelo has really kind of opened things up.
I forget his name. The Ecuadorian striker who scored all the goals.
You mean early on Campana?
Campana. So I'm watching even Campana yesterday when they had the non-goal, when it was a very much delayed offside there. But even there, you saw Higuaín move the ball to the side and give him the opening. It was called back. I didn't see the flag up for a while. But it's the little things like that. And again, that sort of goes through our whole conversation today between Tua and Bam. You need players. You need multiple players. And you don't need MSL garbage and your Breck Shays and bringing guys back who have been for 17 other MLS teams. You need to move forward. Maybe they're moving in that direction.
Lassiter wouldn't have been an effective player for us when in the Fusion days if you don't have a Pibe. If you don't have Valderrama setting him up, there was no way that Lassiter was going to get the ball from the last part of the third of the field and you know, dodge a couple guys and score. He wasn't that guy. He was the guy you had to set up in the box for a one-touch shot, and that's how he was effective, by having a great point guard like Valderrama set him up.
That's the difference. And that's the difference between adding dynamic talent. Yeah. We saw it with the Dolphins with the Tyreek Hill trade. That's why we're a little bit pins and needles, and we're going to go to Heat camp next week with 13 returning players, wondering what changes it up. Is it a better Kyle Lowry? Matter of fact, I want Kyle Lowry to do his media day next Monday at FTX Arena shirtless, so we could all know once and for all. I wanted to sit down there on the podium. Spo's going to speak about 9 a.m., about 10 a.m. I want Kyle to sit there, rip off the shirt, like The Rock or something, and just show us, hey, I'm here to play. I'm ready to go. And you know what? If he does that, you and I will come on shirtless after. Okay, Big O? We got
There you go. There you go. We could do that. We'll scare the crap out of people with that too. Anything on the trade front? Anybody? Because I don't hear anything, bro.
Well, and here's the deal. Again, as you know, the NFL and every sport, you want to go to camp and see what you have. And I'm getting a bunch of suggestions that that Jay Crowder clearly has become an issue. Danny Ainge addressed it last week about, not Danny Ainge rather, but the Jazz addressed it in general about Jay Crowder wanting out and all that. Actually, it was Ainge. And and some people are telling me they should just trade Duncan Robinson and make that move and get a power forward. You have to wait for your best deal. The Heat have one shot at making a major deal, and it includes Duncan Robinson's tradable contract, that 16, 18 million sweet spot, one or two future first-round picks, and the young player. But it has to be the right deal. This is not the time. This is coming into camp and seeing next Monday. We'll talk about it again Wednesday on our redrecover.com Inside the Paint show, and again Friday on our Acura Pembroke Pines report leading to that. Let's take stock of what we have. I need to see Victor Oladipo in a major role in the preseason, because for all of his optimistic Instagram posts, I need to see if he really can be something special. Again, it could come from within from this team. If you give me Kyle Lowry in NBA shape from the get-go, if you give me Victor Oladipo in any way close to what he used to be, he made huge offseason strides. We need to see that. This will not be a meaningless preseason for the Heat if Eric Spoelstra features those players.
Yeah, no, that is the hope, is that you're able to improve from within. And if you can improve from within and then down the line add a Miles Turner or add somebody that can really add another dimension to your team, then things are going to get interesting. It's going to be a fun season. There's no doubt about it. We may not look at them as championship contenders right now, but there's no doubt that if people do start to remember, before you came on, I said structure is so important.
Yes.
For Whiteside and Johnson and Tyler Johnson, all these guys had the best success ever because they had the proper structure. Well, maybe now, the proper structure gives these guys an opportunity to really grow. And if they can add another piece, you just never know, dude. They are deep. I will say that. They do have a lot of depth, and they have a lot of players that have room to grow. And that's pretty cool.
And the other problem is, I'm going to get into this with Kurt Heelan on Wednesday in the redrecover.com Inside the Paint show, is the East has depth and the East has room to grow. And the Celtics are good, and the Sixers are good, and the Bucks are still good, and the Nets have gotten better, and the Raptors can be right there. That all of a sudden, every Heat game will matter, because you know what? I think the difference between 1-4 last year was 2 games. I think the difference between 1 and 6, and maybe even that play-in spot at 7, is going to be awfully close. So if you go to me the early part of the season, I were a couple of stinkers, but there's still 82 games, I might tell you, hey, Big O, this season the games mean double, because the East is that good. Because the difference between 1 and being on the road in the first round of the playoffs is going to be very finite, very slim.
All right, the 5 for 35 and anything else that you're working on the Sun Sentinel. Tell them about
all week I'm doing my positional breakdown. Some have been really easy. The first 2, Dwayne Wade, best shooting guard. Tim Hardaway, best point guard. Got interesting. Tomorrow I'm posting best small forward. Before it was LeBron James and no one. Now Jimmy Butler, he doesn't have the championships. But you're talking about a guy who got him to 1 NBA Finals within 1 shot of an NBA Final. I think when I do my 5 at 45 years from now, we might have to look at Jimmy Butler a little bit different. Then it gets harder later in the week, because delineating power forwards and who you want to put in. Is it Chris Bosh for the championships? Is it Udonis Haslem for his length of time here? That's going to be interesting. And you and I have debated the other one for years. Is it Shaq because of the championship he won? Is it Zoe because of a supporting role and being here that much longer? So that gets interesting. Or is it Chris Bosh because he was the center on 2 championship teams? So
he does have the most important block in Heat history.
So you have
Danny Green in the corner, and he does also have the most important rebound.
Yes.
And he also has the most important assist in Heat history.
So you have all of that going on. And then the end of the week, I'm going to sum up my positions with top 6 man, where all of a sudden Tyler Hero, just 3 years into his career, certainly, even for all the things that someone like a Dan Marley provided for you, you have to look at that also. So I think it'll be fun rounding it up. And then come Sunday at the Sun Sentinel, I'm going to do my all-time Heat teams, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So I'm looking forward to that. And then next Monday, we'll all be at Media Day. So I'm looking forward to that also.
I'm just looking forward to see where Jim Rowinski and Craig Neal land in that list of yours. I just want to know. That's it. Clint Wheeler, maybe. I don't know. I want to know where John Shasky. Where is he going to rank in the great?
First of all, stop cutting to the core. He's a late player. God bless him. May he rest in peace. You really want an Alan Ogg mention. That's what you really want.
Now we're talking the Oggster. Yes.
So
yes,
we'll
we would chant. We would chant for the Oggster in the blowouts.
But I've been very careful not to forget the past, which is why I have Sherman Douglas, number 5, among my Heat all-time point guards, the general, because you can't forget about those kind of guys also. So if you look back and read the series this week, we have not forgotten who got the Heat to the point, to their takeoff point. So it's been a really fun project.
Yeah, I love Sherman Douglas. Always will, dude. Those were fun times with the Heat, even though they didn't win anything. But it was fun watching them build in those times. All right, follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat, and catch his work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. And of course, he does it here 3 times a week. He'll be back on Wednesday with the RedRecover.com Inside the Paint show with Kurt Heelan from NBC Sports. All right, Ira, thank you. Have a great week, my friend.
And then all next week from the Bahamas. Maybe I'll even be sober. Talk to you Wednesday. Thanks, Big O.
There you go. Little Bahamas action. Speaking of...